Hi, this is John R. Smith from Nu Shooz, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking Podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
John Smith of Nu Shooz.
Nu Shooz is a retired band from the 70s and 80s and 90s and so forth.
Probably most notable for the I Can't Wait.
Yes. The band has been retired since 2019, but this interview we're exploring the heyday of the band. So let's get to it, man.
All right, good night.
Good night. John, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
John, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Eric.
We are so excited to have you. Let's get right into this. In 2019, Nu Shooz called it quit and retired the band. Was it difficult for you and Valerie to be without the band after being with it for over 40 years?
Well, that's a cool question. No, because we... Well, it was just a really interesting path, and we spent 7 years, felt like 70, going out on the 80s tour, between 2013 and 2019. So we went out and played our 2.5 hits, on these track date shows in stadiums, and at the same time, we were like, well, gosh, we'd like to play some real music. So we put one last version of the band back together in 2014, and we played for 14, 15, 16, 4 years. And in 2016, we decided we would make one last record, which was Bagtown.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of like heading on the downslope of it. Let's make one more record. We had a great band together and a home studio that was awesome. And so, in 2019, it's just Val and I looked at each other and went, hey, want to stop? Yeah, I was thinking about it too. We're kind of like that. So we think of these things at the same time. So it was like, well, let's make one last record. And then in 2019, we retired right before COVID. It was like November 2019, and then COVID was in March next year.
Yep.
Good timing, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've noticed a lot of, or at least to me anyways, it seems like a resurgence in 80s music and shows on Netflix and movies in general. Does it, when you see stuff like that, does it give you an itch to maybe kind of dabble and get back out there?
I have other interests, and if you go back to the beginning or the middle, the record deal, I wasn't that comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I didn't really get off on what show business did to Nu Shooz and our image and our, just the way we're packaged, because we started out as a 9-piece horn band. We played Tower of Power and Earth, Wind, and Fire. We could really play that stuff and sing those complex arrangements and stuff. So fast forward a few years and all of a sudden we get a record deal. I Can't Wait went nuts as an import. And we get this record deal and all of a sudden the band's gone and we're being packaged as a synth pop married duo from Oregon. And I don't know, I just didn't really dig it, because it wasn't what I was about, So I Can't Wait kind of went crazy, and in a way, it was almost like My Sharona, it was the song that ate the band.
Yeah.
Very much so. Well, I wanted to bring this back to the retirement of the band. As we did see COVID-19 pandemic usher in the social mitigations, I guess social distancing mitigations. I guess that's the proper way of saying it. Did it make it a little?
Well, there were no more stadium shows for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Did it make it easy on you guys to? I mean, I guess you guys were already saying, "Hey, let's call it a day." But when the COVID pandemic came in, or did that just kind of reassure everything for you guys and say, yeah, we made a really good decision here?
Well, it was just serendipitous. During COVID, I just felt sorry for all my blues musician friends and jazz musician friends that make a marginal living anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the older guys, it's like, wow, you're getting robbed of you just got robbed of 3 years of playing at the end of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like that, but we did really good. Introverts did really good during COVID because we just dove into projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, you play keyboards and guitars. Which one did you start with?
I started playing guitar 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, because I had heard the Hendrix Band of Gypsies record. Before that, I wanted to be a pathologist, and I would have been such a crappy doctor, especially if they had given me that prescription pad, But no, I started on guitar, but there was a piano around the house, too, so I was dabbling in that. I really couldn't decide if I wanted to be Hendrix or McCoy Tyner. So I was banging on the piano, and that turned out to be great because it was a spinet. It was a crappy little spinet, and I broke keys because I was trying to sound like Leon Russell, and you don't sound like that on a spinet, But I was a guitar player. I got into a Leo Kottke thing that made me kind of popular in high school, and then proceeded to get into John McLaughlin and stuff. And then I hitchhiked up to Portland when I was 19 because this girl had told me, oh, come see me at college. But I got there and she was like, what are you doing here? But I ended up in Portland, and Portland had this fantastic Latin jazz scene. And I knew enough about piano to kind of insinuate myself as I could play those Latin Montuno things, dun 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 dun. Those kind of Latin, they're called Montunos. And I had somehow, my high school Spanish class was first period, right? 8:30 in the morning. So I didn't learn much Spanish. But when I got to Portland, I knew enough Spanish that I wrote 3 Latin songs for this band really quick, using phrases that my Spanish teacher used to say, like boca grande mente pequeño, it's like means big mouth, small mind. And so like I was in with this band, and the band had horns, and all of a sudden I just got hooked on horns and writing for them. I started writing for them. And at that moment, like I was 20 years old, I wanted to be an arranger from that moment on. I just admired arrangers like Eddie Palmieri and stuff. And so I just dove into arranging. And that ended up, the Latin band ended in 78. I went back to New York and I saw the real Latin bands, Tito Puente and Celia Cruz and all this stuff. And I went, wait a minute, I'm not Cuban. I'm going to go home and do an American thing with horns. And that's what I did, you know. And so we started in 79. I had a horn section by 1980. And then all of a sudden, we're one of the top 5 bands in Portland. And I got to tell you, honestly, that was the most fun I had in show business, was being one of the top bands in Portland, because it was amazing music scene. I think it was the best music scene in the world at that time.
Nice.
Actually, much better than Los Angeles anyway. And it was because it just rained up there all winter, and the rents were cheap. My rent was $90 for a little studio in 1979, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was just a fertile ground, you know. I like to call it an ecosystem, because ecosystem is a pond that's healthy where algae grows, you know. And ecosystem in the music business was, there were clubs. There were like 10 clubs within a square mile in downtown Portland. We worked every weekend for years.
Nice.
And the other part of the ecosystem is the audience is the same age as you. And there's a pool of musicians, and people are receptive, you know. I was really lucky, because once I became an arranger, almost everything I wrote up got played. And so I got to hear it get played. And, you know, if you want to write a good chart, like write 100 bad ones. So I was just really extremely lucky. And I met Valerie when I first got to Portland, too. So that was good too. Well, she checked off all boxes. You know?
Well, you know, as you say, the origins of Nu Shooz are in Portland, and obviously the Latin music scene was vibrant back then. But music nerds, for like Jeff and I, you know, we think of the Pacific Northwest music scene as, you know, we think of heavy grunge rock and roll. But can you give our listeners an insight to the dance R&B scene up in the Portland area? What was it like?
Well, there was a punk scene, too, a thriving punk scene. We're talking the 80s, and the grunge thing got way more press, and Seattle got way more press in the 90s, you know, but we were done by then. I was off in my ad career by then. But Portland scene in the 80s really started with the Portland scene in the late 70s, which was like folk and country and a lot of blues players. And then that kind of morphed into dance music, because dance music was new, you know, in 1980. Oh yeah, there was disco, you know, but really a new thing kind of coalesced in the 80s, don't you think? The early 80s?
Definitely.
Like,
oh yeah.
You know, because gosh, you know, I think it was 1980 when I started hearing drum machines, Africa Bambaataa, and all that stuff, you know, all the Arthur Baker stuff. And I ended up meeting him, nice guy. But there was just a lot of places to play, you know, you could make a living. Well, at the end of the week, I don't know, I never felt like we weren't making money, you know. I felt rich because our apartment was cheap, but at the end of the week, I had just enough money for a Conan comic book and a quart of Bohemian, which was 99 cents.
Yeah.
So by the end of the week, I'm down to $3, but it felt rich, you know. And that first band went on for 2.5 years, where we just packed out, you know. And then, as bands do, like that whole scene imploded. Like, we went on a tour of Idaho, Montana, and Upper Washington for 6 weeks. And at the end of that tour, 5 people quit and 1 was fired. So then it was like 83, 84. We limped along, but I was writing songs all the time. I was really prolific, lazy writer. You know, and in other words, I go, oh, that's fine. When that's done, that's a good enough thumper to fill the dance floor, you know, because the expectations were kind of low, I guess. But I probably wrote, I don't know, 100 songs in 2 years, you know, and one of the first ones was I Can't Wait, you know, and it was just a mid-level dance song. Nobody really cared about it. We played it too fast because, you know, just get it over with. But the music scene was nurturing, you know, and there were older guys. I learned from older guys. I went to see older musicians all the time, and some of them were mentors as like arranging teachers. You know, they would trade arranging lessons for pot, you know, and so, you know, nobody's self-taught. That's what I think. You know, you pick it up from people, and maybe you didn't go to school for it, but it was just really a fertile ecosystem.
Yeah, very good.
Well, how much did your writing style change between Poolside and Bagtown?
Oh, nah. There was a couple albums before that. There was That's Right. No, Can't Turn It Off was first. Mm-hmm. That was the big horn band record where I was really trying to be Steely Dan and not quite getting there, but trying. And then the next one was called That's Right. And that was a cassette-only release in 1985 that had I Can't Wait on it, the American version, before the Dutch guy put the barking seal thing on the front of it. You know, you know, which, you know, I'm thankful for it, but I would never have thought of myself. But anyway, Poolside was pretty much all songs we played in the clubs. We made that record in 6 weeks because the single was roaring up the charts already, and Atlantic said, all right, we need an album. So we went to L.A. and made this album in 6 weeks with a producer called Jeff Lorber. Mm-hmm. He was a fusion star in the 70s and 80s. And it turned out it was the first record he'd ever produced, and it went gold. But then after that, I guess I'm proud of this, but I don't know why. But I never tried to make another I Can't Wait. Yeah. Because I had other interests, you know. I really loved Lowell George and Little Feat. And I was a slide player too. So, you know, I did a couple of those kind of things which went nowhere. And we went to Minnesota for the second record and worked with a producer that was in the Prince camp. And it really didn't work out. Because we were starting to get into machine stuff and MIDI and stuff, and this producer, the Minnesota style of recording was to get all the best players in Minneapolis, you know, in a room and bang the thing out. Maybe not even to a click, you know. So I knew I was screwed when he came to my house before we started the record, and I played him some demos, and he goes, do you have any older stuff? I go, uh-oh. I was in for it, and I was in for it. So we made this record, and then took it back to L.A. and remade the whole thing with Jeff Lorber. But my writing style was all over the place. You know, I didn't want to be I was not a part of the dance scene, okay? I was part of the jazz scene more Tower of Power than Miami Sound Machine, you know. They're nice people. I'm not to denigrate Miami Sound Machine, but you know what I'm saying? Like I was into Lowell George. I was into that Van Halen record came out, and I'm like, of the three of the triumvirate of funk rock players, you've got Prince, Michael Jackson, and Rick James.
Yeah.
And I liked Rick James. Right? So when Van Halen came out and Beat It and all this stuff, I was like, okay, funk rock, yeah. Because Four Horns gets a bit much to carry around anyway, because then you always have to write for them or they're just standing around. So
Exactly.
83, 84, I was into a leaner, kind of meaner style, less horns. Cameo and bands like that were dropping their horns and going for a more synthy, funk rock kind of thing. So anyway, I managed to get one single off of Told You So, the second Atlantic record, called Should I Say Yes, a ballad. Because I saw these bands having big hits with ballads, so I wrote one, and that's what charted. I call it our half a hit because it only got to 41. So it didn't get all the free Casey Kasem kind of, American Top 40 exposure. Or it would have gone higher, but it stalled at 41. Then the third record, what the heck was on it? I can't even remember what album songs are on now. It's been so long, and I've heard other people say that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I just kept getting more eclectic when really Atlantic never put any pressure on us because they didn't know what to do with a hippie funk band because we were jazz hippies,
Yeah.
And we didn't know anything about the music business. I guess if I had to do it all over, I would have, done a couple sound-alike things like Motown did. They would do Heat Wave and then do Quicksand, and it was essentially the same record.
Absolutely. Well, I guess this would be kind of like a two-part question here. The band was signed by Atlantic Records for the Poolside album. And Atlantic had you guys for 2 albums, correct? Is that correct?
Well, 3. We made 3, but they didn't put the third one out because by then, there's a lot of turnover at record labels. I used to say they do the interesting stuff and then go to lunch, and do the interesting stuff in the morning and then go to lunch. And by the time they come back, they're on the phone looking for a better job.
Exactly.
So there was a lot of turnover, and on the third record, we were in a real hostile relationship with our A&R person. I bear her no malice because I saw what she was trying to do. She was trying to turn the Atlantic R&B department more adult. Less of the quirky stuff and more of the crooners. And vocal groups and stuff. So, and she was definitely, we definitely weren't, well, I'll just say it, we weren't black enough, for her department. And I totally get that. I get what she was trying to do, but she was just kind of mean about it. And so that's, they didn't put the record out. And we spent too long making that record. We spent 4 years making this record. And so, but at the end of that, and she dropped us from the label without even a phone call.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's real nice.
This is a good little tiny story. What we were doing, radio stations would want you to make personal appearances. And the subtext was like, if you do this show for us, we'll probably play your record, but if you don't do the show for us, we won't. So we had a show that was just Valerie and the backup singers playing the track at a 4th of July festival. And I was introduced to the new Atlantic rep for the Northwest. And I said, hey, I'm John Smith from the Nu Shooz, and we got a record coming out in September. And he says, I didn't see that on the schedule. And that was it. That was the end of our record deal.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
But after 4 years with that last A&R woman, I was just done.
Yeah.
You know, I was so done. And it wasn't fun. And the band had turned into something that I couldn't relate to. And I was never part of the herky-jerky, quirky 80s, you know.
Absolutely.
I could have never been in B-52s or something like that, you know. Not a punk bone in my body, you know. I like horns and strings. And so after the record deal ended, my manager trained himself as a sound engineer and got a job at an ad music agency, and he brought me in as a music guy. And then that was a really great period. The 90s, I had so much fun because I was writing something different every week, you know, instead of writing for the same band for 30 years. I was suddenly like, oh, we got write a string quartet. Let's do it 8 a.m, you know? And I was really good at that. I could write up things and think really quickly and jump around from style to style. So that was a really nice period of time.
Very good.
And when did Nu Shooz start bubbling up again? Well, I don't know. I Can't Wait was just a steady, it became one of those songs that's emblematic of the 80s, you know.
Yeah,
we got
so.
one. We got an anthem of the 80s that, if you think about what's the 40s playlist, right? Right? And when you think of the 80s, we come up.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's great. Like we get 800,000 hits a month on whatever internet-y thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, each one is worth a thousandth of a cent or something like that. What's called a mill, I guess. It's called a mill, M-I-L. And it's the same measure that they use in grocery stores to measure their profits, which, like on canned goods, are very narrow. So, yeah, we get a lot of plays still, like millions every year.
Fantastic. Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, since you hung up the hat on the band, what have you been working on? I saw you said that you've been working on some graphic novels. Can you tell us more about that venture?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm doing graphic novels, but that's just for fun because, honestly, they're not that good. But I'm drawing the stuff I want to draw.
Yeah.
But I'm also seriously studying music again. Because even if I don't play anymore, the chess game of music has always really interested me, music theory and stuff. So I'm taking 2 courses online. One is deep music theory, Queen's Gambit kind of stuff, and the other one's more guitar oriented. So I got those 3 things. I jump around from one to the other all day.
Well, that was my follow-up question. If you were doing anything to keep your chops up with the music playing, have you thought about maybe producing or working with any other artists?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a really great collaborator, I guess. You know, I have produced a couple people, and yeah, it's gone well, but that's not my thing.
Yeah,
And also, I mean, I feel like all the oxygen's taken up now. You know, when the internet started, well, I felt it change when MTV started, actually, because all of a sudden you were a commodity rather than a living puddle of music. Yeah, than an artist. Yeah. And so, like, when the internet started blowing up, in the late 90s, I saw right away that it was going to get crowded. You know, it was going to be like a swap meet.
Yeah.
And so people would come up to me, you know, on 20 years after our record deal ended and go, oh, why don't you just write another hit song? Ha, ha, ha. Well, a hit song is a combination of the singer, the song, and what's going on in the business at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And there's not room in the business, even if I wanted to. Like, who, you know, there's not room for a 68-year-old guy as a songwriter, unless you're, you know, I don't know. I can't even think of anybody. But, you know, there's just not any oxygen left in the business. And let's face it, the music business is a young man's game, I think. And that's not like, oh, poor me, you know. I have plenty to do, and my music studies are plenty interesting without trying to write another 80s funk song, whatever, you know. Really, everything has turned out so great, you know. You think, oh, no, you know, our record deal's over, life is over, but it wasn't. Life went on. But we never stopped. I never stopped doing music since 1971. Not for a day, you know. So even, I just thought the business was kind of dumb, you know, and so we were making enough of a living off of our 2.5 hits that we could just do whatever we wanted to, you know, artistically. And I jumped around, you know, and painted paintings and wrote short stories and wrote long stories and played in bands, played blues bands mostly. And some people can make the blues really interesting, you know. But ultimately, I think I was too much of a bebopper for the blues people.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the band being retired goes, is there still songs in the Nu Shooz vault that have not been released or that are completed that maybe another artist would take it on and make it theirs? Is there anything left as far as Nu Shooz material, unreleased Nu Shooz material is?
Well, yeah, and we released it. It's an album called Kung Pao Kitchen, and we took. This was, what year was that? I can't even remember.
2012?
2012.
Yeah.
2012, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And we had all these 2-inch tapes, so some of which had been water damaged, and we just threw those out. But we said, well, Atlantic rejected all these songs. That means they're just demos that we own. So we bumped these tapes into Pro Tools and mixed them, and mainly mixing them was taking stuff out because 80s stuff was so cluttered. You know, and so I just took stuff out. And anyway, it's called Kung Pao Kitchen, and you can see what was left from the Atlantic years.
Oh, very good. Nu Shooz released 7 studio albums throughout its duration. Do you have a favorite album of the body of work, and do you have one that you have, hey, this was not our best interpretation, I wish we could go back in the studio and re-record it?
Well, I think addressing the first half of that, Valerie and I both love Pandora's Box because it was totally like, she calls it jazz pop cinema. We did jungle music, and we did we covered a couple old Nu Shooz songs, but mostly it was just cinematic stuff. We had a string section, and we had 3 strings and 3 horns, and the songwriting was really interesting, and the songwriting was different because I had been watching the Martin Scorsese movie about Bob Dylan, No Direction Home.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that thing 300 times, and it was kind of like a revolution in lyric writing, because my lyric writing was clever but lazy. And so I was listening to all these impressionist lyrics over folk music that he was doing, and I just had an epiphany. And so Pandora was written lyrics first.
Oh, cool.
In a very conversational style, in a style that that Lowell George called the cracked mosaic. So instead of rhymed couplets like you'd have like on a 80s Madonna record, Fire, Desire, Stay, Away, Phone, Telephone, Home, Alone, Phone. It was like one day I found a box, an ordinary box. I looked inside. I was transformed forever. Pandora's box. So that was like a new structure.
Yeah.
Which I'd started thinking about because of Kurt Cobain. I think that Kurt Cobain blasted the 80s style of couplet writing right out the door, So he got me thinking about it. But this Dylan movie, which I recommend to everyone, really blew my mind. And so we were like tired of everything, tired of funk and tired of, I don't know, just tired of every kind of music that was out there. So we decided to, as Valerie says, make the album that we wanted to hear then. So, and so then we went out and tried to play it, and everybody hated it except about 6 people.
As far as an album from the band that you wish you could have a redo on, which one? What would it be? Do you have one?
Well, our first album, Can't Turn It Off. I really didn't know how to write songs yet, and so I don't hate it. I really like the texture of the whole record, but there's lines of lyrics that make me cringe, and I'm still rewriting them in my car at any given moment on the freeway or at the grocery store. I'm still trying to fix that 1982 record. Honest to God.
Nice.
All the time. Like I get up and I go, can't I go back?
There's a project. Yeah, there's a project for you there. There you go.
Right. Like I need more projects, right?
Well, we're running out of our allotted time for the evening. We have one more question for you, then we'll leave you alone. Deal?
Yeah. This has been fun.
Oh, good. Well, I ask this to all of our guests. The mystery of rock and roll. It's no longer a thing with the dawning of the internet and all the different various social medias are out there. There's no mystery. There's no mystique. There's no Zeppelin. There's no Kiss. There's no Aerosmith anymore. There's no big secrets. For you, the artist and the fan, what do you prefer, this new age of accessibility? Because if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be doing this with you tonight. Or do you miss that mystery and mystique that rock and roll once had of the 70s and 80s?
Well, we still have all that music with us, and I, Beatles or Stones, I need both. But I don't know. I'm not really comfortable in the modern era, but I find plenty to do, and I find the machines useful and all that. What mystique? I mean, yeah. But when you meet all those people, they're just real people. Yeah. Like we opened for Cheap Trick one time, and we spent the afternoon backstage with them, and they're just guys. It's not mystique, and it's funny. Rick Nielsen points at he's got 10 Marshall cabinets on stage. There's mystique for you. And he says, only one of them has speakers in it.
That's mystique.
Mystique?
For sure. We're running out of our allotted time. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to discuss?
I just want to say that, like, for everything that we went through in the music business, the silver lining is that it enabled us to spend the rest of our lives being artists. Mm-hmm. And how cool is that?
Yeah,
it is. It truly is. Well, this is how things are going to work out. We're about 2 weeks behind on our episodes, but Jeff, the editing wizard over here, will go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and he'll get it all cleaned up for us. He's the best. And then once it's available, I'll send you the link. And if you could, would you and Valerie please share it wherever you possibly could?
Oh, you betcha. She's all over that stuff, every platform.
Fantastic.
We'll spread it all over the place.
Yeah. We'll just, Jeff will have the link. I'll send it to you. And then, like I said, wherever you have socials or whatever else, please share it.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. John, thank you so much. It was an honor.
John, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Hey, nice hanging with you guys.
Hey, I'll be in touch with you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much.
All right, peace out.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Everybody
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.